Dave. The Enemy. Chapter 1.
Inches had locked himself in the bathroom to be alone with his thoughts, which wasn't good for any of us. In fact, any time he is unsupervised, no matter how brief of a moment, the consequences are dire. Fearing the worst, Lexi and I decided to lure him out, with the promise of warm cookies and soda, a typical meal for a creature of his kind. We could hear him breathing in there, and knowing that the lights were turned off was a further concern of ours. Inches, come on out, bud. We attempted to coax him further. A faint sound squirmed out from beneath the door. Inches, what are you doing in there? A rhetorical question, seeing as we knew very well what he was up to. After a long pause, and a few more taps on the door, we retreated to the kitchen, where, after a few more sips of whiskey, I heated up some rich coffee and a large cookie. The cookie, now placed on a white napkin aside the coffee mug, sat delicately on the living room floor, and Inches emerged from the darkness of the hallway. "Hey bud, I have a little snack for you. A little treat for our favorite Inches," I said softly, hoping not to startle him. Inches reached out with his massive hands and accepted the gifts I had offered. "Thanks, man," he replied, excitedly. "I love you guys. Anything for our Inches." I then touched his shoulder to show him we meant no harm. With a thunderous racket, the door to Dave's bedroom swung open, and Dave, the brightest and most talented of our friends, stomped towards us, in a similar fashion to that of which a male gorilla might approach a potential mate. "What are you guys doing out here? Are you leaving Inches alone, like I told you? Inches, are they bothering you?" Dave questioned, in his genuinely masculine tone. "What? I just gave him a little inch meal. We're treating him like gold," I said to Dave. Yeah, sure," Dave sarcastically added. His masculinity had made Lexi and I very nervous on this occasion and many others, but there was something unnerving about what happened next. Inches began to speak. "Dave, they're going crazy. I've seen Steve get reckless before, but this is really bad. He's pushing the limits." "What? What did he do this time?" Dave asked angrily, as he glared into my soul. An icy shiver, almost like a frozen blade of fear, shot down my spine and into my testicles. "Inches!" I shouted, defensively. "We're being so good. Why are you lying to Dave?" Page 6. "MHMM," Dave murmured, then boisterously, he shouted into my aching soul, "Let Inches talk. It's his time, now." Lexi and I sank into the sofa. Along with terror, we also began to feel a slight sense of guilt, but quickly reminded ourselves that we had done nothing wrong. We were innocent. Shot down by the fighter jets of Inches' accusations and paralyzed by Dave's fiery stare. "Steve's actually innocent this time," Lexi shrieked, trying to prevent Dave's fist from entering my esophagus. "This time, he really didn't do anything." "Enough," Dave blasted out, like the first roar of a battlefield cannon, ignited by the rage of 1,000 skinheads having their food stamps cancelled on Kwanzaa. I said, "Let Inches speak." Inches stood up and used very erratic motions and gestures to explain the made-up crimes which he was accusing us of. First, he was throwing garbage everywhere. Bottles, paper, all kinds of things. He emptied the trash out on the floor and just started throwing it everywhere. He threw stuff at me, and then he threw things over there, by my robot. "Wait, what robot?" Dave asked. "It's a cardboard mess that he taped together, using your supplies," when he was chanting to himself about how everybody loves him, and walking in a circle like he was possessed. I explained to Dave. It was scary. Dave was a little shaken up. "What are you guys talking about? That doesn't make any sense." Inches did not get the reaction from Dave that he had hoped for, and so he created more details to feather his vortex of delusion. "They wrote note." Inches snatched a scrap of paper from off of the carpet. It was crumpled and seemed to have been doodled on, but the images or handwriting were not clear enough to make out. It says something about your mom, Dave. They wrote it, and they put it under the door. I didn't write that, Lex said. Inches quickly pretended that some sort of proof had just been acquired. See? Stephen wrote it. Lex just said he didn't do it, so that means Stephen wrote it. He's guilty. I am not a witness to that, Lex said, with a finger in the air. Inches yelled again. Stephen wrote it, and pushed it under the door. I smirked. So, you could see through the door? Let's say, hypothetically, I did write that. Whatever it says. How would you know? How would you see me writing it and putting it under the door? Do you have cameras in here? Dave held the paper at different angles and lengths from his face, but could not make sense of it. Inches, I don't see where it says that. Actually, I don't even think this says anything. Inches was now enjoying a rush of adrenaline, probably conjured by his thrill for chaos. Dave, it says it. Look, it says it right here. Inches pointed to a smudge on the illegible notepaper. Dear Inches. Something, something. Killed Dave's mum. See? Look, it says it, right there. He was prodding the wadded note with his moist fingers. Inches, where did you get this? Are you sure you didn't write this? I asked him. Don't instigate, Dave yelled. I want to know what's going on. Where did this note come from? They put it under the door, when I was locked in the bathroom. They wouldn't leave me alone, Inches said, hoping to sway Dave's perception of the situation. Page 7. I felt we were losing touch of the main issue, so I gave Dave the details of what he had missed. Remember when you said, no masturbating? Well, we caught him trying to do that in your brother's bed, and then he locked himself in the bathroom to finish. Another strange thing is that the pencil used to scribble this note was actually in the bathroom with Inches, this whole time. With the lights off. Lexi added. Inches, is this true? Dave asked. What? No, Dave. Look, he threw the garbage. He messed up my robot. Dave glared at me, and asked, did you mess up his robot? It wasn't a robot. And no. It just fell over because it was top heavy, I replied. And that has nothing to do with anything. Inches, then what? Dave seemed to have completely forgotten Inches' lack of credibility. Well, then Inches looked around the room, trying to think of some other imaginary crime he could pin on me. Then he took that pen and drew all over the walls. Dave, being as intelligent as he was and wearing his prescription lenses at the time, should have been the first to examine the wall only 2 feet in front of himself, and realized that these accusations were completely invalid, which would not only disprove Inches' innocence but also defuse the entire situation. Inches, I don't see anything. Are you sure he did that? Dave, look, it's right there. See all the lines? He scribbled all over the wall. I grinned and began to relax. Surely, Dave would now realize I was innocent. You know what? Dave said, rubbing his chin and squinting his eyes. I do kind of see something. What? I shouted. Dave, no way. Don't let him get into your head. He's a mastermind. He's using his tricks to get what he wants. Yeah, and what's that? Dave asked. Because so far, it looks like Inches is just trying to get away from you guys, torturing him. Yeah. Inches squeaked. Then he stared into space as if he forgot what we were discussing. Lexi belted out, Dave, you know how crazy Inches gets. How can you just take his side? I think Inches is telling the truth, Dave yelled. And what I'm really upset about is that I feel like I'm being lied to, right to my face. You know, I let you guys stay here, and I have work in the morning. I just want to get some sleep. Now I'm going to bed, and I don't care what happens. Just leave Inches alone, and if anyone knocks on my door, or wakes me up for any reason, I'm sorry to say it, But all of you will have to leave. I can't live like this. I have enough trouble resting as it is, and all this arguing isn't helping. Now leave Inches alone. I'm going to bed, and I suggest you and Alex do the same thing. Good night. Dave lazily returned to his messy room and shut his door. See guys, that's what you get. Inches snarled at us. Yeah, Lexi responded, that's what we get when you lie to Dave. I didn't lie to Dave. You lied to Dave. You saw what Steven did with the pen, and he stabbed the couch too. I only pretended to stab the couch, I said. And besides, if I wanted to stab the couch, I could, since it's technically Lex's and Trish's couch, and Lex gave me permission. Page 8. Yeah, that's right, said Lex. I don't mind, and I know Trish doesn't care. Trish doesn't care about anything. See, Inches? I then poked a tiny hole into the cushion. That's how you stab the couch. Before, I was just pretending, but now that I've been blamed for it already, I might as well do it, right? I then repaired the hole and flipped the cushion. You really blew it, Inches. Lex shook his head and sipped his beer. I didn't blow it. You guys blew it. You blew it when you stabbed the wall, and I'm telling Dave about the couch. Inches then stormed off down the hallway to masturbate, again, in the bed of Dave's brother, who was not present. Inches. I warned Dave said not to do that. You're gonna be in trouble when he finds the stains. Guys. Inches yelled. I'm going to wake Dave up. Lex then reminded Inches of Dave's terms, if you wake Dave up, we all get in trouble. So your logic is flawed. I don't care. I'm not going to get in trouble because Steven stabbed the couch. Inches popped up out of the bed and began pounding his fists into Dave's bedroom door. Dave, wake up. Dave. Inches was screaming. The door swung open, and there stood Dave, afro and all, his leg hair blowing in the breeze of his electric fan. That's it, said Dave, as furious as ever, with his eyebrows in the shape of a letter V, and his nose flared like a chimpanzee. You guys have to go home. I didn't want to do this. I thought the warning would be enough, but I guess you guys really can't control yourselves, so you have to go. I'm sorry, but you did it to yourselves. Shocked, Lex pleaded, but Dave. We didn't do anything. I swear. Yeah. Added, we were trying to stop Inches from getting his spunk in your brother's bed. Inches, I asked you not to do that. Dave said, sternly. I did not. Inches yelped, like a flu-ridden puppy on a subway rail. I was just trying to sleep. Dave looked back at Lex and I. Well, there you go. He was just trying to sleep. And you guys can't leave him alone, so it's time to pack up your stuff. Lex, who found this defamation of character quite aggravating, pleaded to Dave, once more. Dave, come on. Who are you going to believe? The one who told you about scribbles on the wall that aren't actually there? The one who's all paranoid from soda and energy drinks? The one who humps everything and jerks off in your brother's room? Inches is the one who knocked on your door. Why isn't he getting blamed for anything? Steven, tell him about the couch. You big liar. Inches blabbed. Dave, now curious, looked to me and asked, what about the couch? I told him the truth. Well, Inches was blaming me for stabbing the couch, and I felt very insulted, so I figured if I was going to do the time, I might as well do the crime. But I did ask Lex's permission since it's technically his couch. The whole thing doesn't matter though, because I fixed the hole and flipped the cushion. Either way, I didn't think you would mind, since there isn't any damage or anything. Dave, with his head in his hand, now took a deep breath, but before he could say another word, Inches shifted the conversation. Steve tried to kill me. Inches fibbed, as he ran into the living room to act out a situation that never, page 9, occurred. He was standing right here. He was cutting himself, then he was cutting the wall, then he looked at me, and told me he was going to kill me. I knew he was going to do it. because I could see it in his eyes. Dave was shocked by what he heard. "That's it. You took it too far," he said, looking at me disappointedly. Lex tried to interject, but Dave was steaming. "Now I have to hear about you trying to kill Inches? Why did you do that? Why did you tell him you were going to kill him?" I didn't know how to answer the question, because of how crazy it sounded. I didn't. Also, if I was cutting myself, then I must have superhuman healing powers, because I don't have any marks on me. Almost makes you wonder whether or not Inches has told a single bit of truth all night. Dave was taken back a bit. "Well, you're right. You don't seem to have any marks, and he did originally say you drew on the wall, so I don't know who to believe." I offered Dave some insight. "Well, at least we know who isn't telling the truth." Pointing at Inches, I continued, "But we can't blame him. It's all the fructose taking control of his brain. He's also going through sexual withdrawals, so he's desperate and delusional right now. I actually feel bad for him, but he's out of control." Dave found this speech compelling, but not enough to change his mind. With his arms crossed, he looked unenthused. "This is too much. You guys have to go. We can sort it all out later, but right now I need to sleep, so all of you need to go." I noticed that Inches had retreated to the room and was now laying on his back again, gazing into the bright lit screen of his cellular telephone. I said to him, "Come on, Inches. Time to go, bud. This is what you wanted." Dave, who was entering his room, turned quickly and said, "No. Inches doesn't have to go. He hasn't done anything wrong, so he can stay. I'll give him a ride tomorrow, after I get out of work. Since you guys just couldn't obey the one rule, of letting me sleep, you are the ones who need to leave. Otherwise you won't learn your lesson and I'll feel like a pushover." A little agitated, I questioned Dave's authority. I thought the rule was that if anyone knocks on your door or wakes you up, then all three of us have to leave? Dave was now looking pretty drained, and the lack of sleep was also factoring into his bad mood. "Look, I have to stick to my decision. I know I told you that all three of you would have to leave, but I do feel like Inches has gone through a lot tonight, and I'm not going to kick him out. He looks really shaken up, and I'm taking his side on this one. I'm sorry." Very peacefully, I broke the tension. "Well, Dave, I'm sorry Inches decided that his masturbation was more important than you getting rest for work in the morning. I guess the only thing we can do is leave, and hope that he apologizes for all of his shenanigans." Dave asked with minimal care, "Well, Alex, how drunk are you? Are you able to drive?" Lex stumbled over an imaginary obstacle and held his beer up. "Yep. I'm sober, bud." His words were slurred and almost unintelligible. "I can't tell if you're being sarcastic," Dave said, squinting his eyes and picking something out of his afro. After a moment of awkwardness and mixed emotions, Dave realized it would be unfair of him to send us to our graves over a simple lie told to him by Inches, the ill-intentioned message addict, and so he told us to put our things back and sleep it off. Although, as quick as he shifted from one extreme to the other, he returned to his original standpoint and reminded us of his fear of being a pushover, which we abided to. "No, don't worry about me, Dave. I'm legal limit," Lex said, wobbling drunkenly towards the door. Page 10. Dave then looked at me and said, "Stephen, I think you should drive. You didn't really drink anything, right?" My retort, "Just a bottle of 100-and-something whiskey, and a few glasses of wine. Actually, I think it would be pretty fun to drive right now. I'm down," gave Dave a sense of reassurance. He then told Lex, cheerfully, "See? Stephen said he'll drive." Lex, clutching his keys tightly in his fist, blurted out, "Whose car is he gonna drive then?" There was a brief pause, then he finished with, "No thanks, Dave. I drive better drunk than Stephen when he drives sober. That's never safe. Besides, I've been way drunker than this before and I always get home, maybe not till some days later, but I get there eventually." Dave had heard enough. Well, that's your own decision, and if you want to take that chance, I can't stop you, he said. All right, Dave. Lex was feeling overwhelmingly betrayed. He then walked out the front door, motioning for me to follow. You heard, Dave. We gotta drive home drunk because Inches brainwashed him. Good night, Princess. I yelled to Inches, spitefully, as the door closed behind us. Good night, Inches. Sweet dreams, bud. Lex said, right after. As we headed to the car, Lex took a detour to knock on the window of the room Inches was defiling. What are you doing? I asked in a very low voice, not to disturb the neighbors. Or Dave. SHH. Relax, bud. I gotta tell Inches something. I left my thing. What thing? SHH. It's okay. Inches knows. Just let me say things to him. I don't know who's going to kill you first, Dave or the cops, I whispered, as I climbed into the musky car. Reclining into an uncomfortable seat crusted over with crumbs and stale sweat, I wrapped myself in what fabrics I could acquire from the pile in the back seat, a pile that can only be described as a portable landfill. This is home for the night, I thought to myself, as Lex entered from the driver's side. He started the car, and drove toward the front of the complex, until both of us realized that driving was too strenuous of a task, seeing as whiskey and wine were now surging through my bloodstream, and Lex had been drinking caramel color since before sundown. We parked a few spaces away from Dave's apartment and tried to sleep through the cold of the night. Unfortunately for us, Lex's phone was as lively as ever, beeping and blinking and vibrating from the array of unread messages and calls being sent by Inches, who had not only won the battle but also wanted to be reassured that we had lost, by all possible definitions of the word. What's he saying, now? I asked Lex, rubbing my sore eyes and trying to stay warm. I don't know, I'm not reading it. Then why don't you turn it off? It's my phone. I need it on in case of emergencies. I can't just shut it off because Inches wants to be a prick, and ruin the night. What kind of emergency is going to happen? We might suffocate or freeze to death, but either way, it'll probably be better than surviving. Page 11. Yeah, well, that's cool, but I need it in case my dad calls. I actually care about him, and he needs a way to contact me. Well, then what the hell? So we can't sleep, since Inches is in charge. He's not going to stop. He does sexting for a living. He can type messages in his sleep. I don't know what to tell you. God, he's probably done beating and now he wants to cuddle with you. He can cuddle with Dave. That's what Dave wanted. He wants Inches, the rapist, in his house, but his best friends aren't welcome. I see how it is now, and he made the biggest mistake. What's that? I'm holding his weed, and now it's mine. You geese still owe me money for that. You gotta bring that up with Dave, but I'm not gonna talk to him about it. I'm not talking to him ever again. Yeah, that's what I said after all of his broken promises, but over time you'll just slowly forget why you were mad at him and eventually you'll be friends again. You can be friends with him. You can do whatever you want, but as far as I'm concerned, I never want to see either of them again. Even Inches? Absolutely. Neither of them are my friends. Friends don't do that. Friends don't invite you to their house to drink and then tell you to leave when they feel like the party is over. No. When you invite people to your house, you know exactly what's going to happen. Dave knew this was going to happen. He invited Inches, and he knows what Inches does. If you're going to invite people, then... Yeah, well, Inches is mixing pills and drinking poison all the time. He's not even a person at this point. He's just a penis on legs, running around looking for holes that need filling, and when there are no girls around, he loses his mind. Dave probably didn't know that. He always sees Inches when there are girls around. I don't care. Dave knows, and now he's my enemy, and you don't let your enemies hold your weed. What an idiot. He's not really an enemy. I thought he was for a long while, but now I can't tell if he does these things on purpose, or if he really doesn't know any better. Or maybe it's true and his mother really does just tell him what to do each day, so he stays close to the nest and keeps bringing home the dough. Nope. He's my enemy. Stevie is dead.